The courtroom fell silent. The judge, a stout man with silver hair and a smirk that had humiliated many before, leaned forward and laughed. His chuckle echoed through the room, filling it with a cruel, mocking tone. "So let me get this straight," he said, shaking his head. "You two think you're qualified to argue in my courtroom? You, of all people." The twin sisters, Keisha and Kayla Carter, stood tall in their elegant suits, their hands clasped together like they were holding back something powerful. They did not flinch, did not look away, even as the laughter in the courtroom grew. The prosecution snickered. The spectators whispered. "You don't belong here," the judge continued. "You're nothing but two little girls playing dress-up. What? Did you pull those suits off a clearance rack? Did you get lost on your way to the janitor's closet?" He leaned back, clearly enjoying himself. The sisters exchanged a glance, a look filled with silent understanding. A storm was brewing behind their calm expressions. Then, with a sharp breath, Keisha spoke. "Your Honor," she said, her voice smooth but firm, "we were hoping to keep this professional, but since you insist on making a spectacle out of us..." Kayla stepped forward, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. "We'll give you the show you want." The judge smirked, but then, boom, a loud noise startled the room. It wasn't an explosion. It was the sound of the case files Keisha had just slammed onto the desk in front of her. A thick, towering stack of documents, filled with legal research, evidence, and airtight arguments. The laughter stopped. Kayla flipped open the first file and read out loud. "According to Case Law 1827b, discrimination in the courtroom is an offense punishable by..." "That's enough," the judge snapped, suddenly flustered. "Oh, we're just getting started," Keisha said, her smile cold and knowing. "Shall we begin, Your Honor?" The entire room sat in stunned silence. Nobody was laughing now. 3 weeks earlier, the Carter sisters had been just two regular young women walking through the towering halls of New York's busiest courthouse. They were dressed in simple clothes, nothing fancy, nothing that screamed lawyer. And that was the point. "Are you sure about this?" Kayla whispered to her sister as they approached the courtroom. Keisha nodded. "Trust me. We need to see how they treat people like us when they think we're nobodies." For years, they had studied law, dedicating their lives to understanding every loophole, every trick, and every method used in a courtroom. But they had also seen injustice firsthand. They had seen judges who dismissed people because of their skin color, prosecutors who looked down on anyone who wasn't from a rich family, defendants who lost cases simply because they didn't have the right lawyer. And they were going to change that. But first, they needed to expose it. That morning, they had deliberately dressed in plain clothes and sat in the back of the courtroom, watching, listening. And they had found exactly what they were looking for. Judge Malcolm Reeves, a man who had a reputation for being tough but fair. Or at least, that's what people thought. The truth was much uglier. He had thrown out evidence from black defendants, sided with biased prosecutors, and ruled unfairly in case after case. But nobody ever challenged him. Until now, they had seen how he smirked at the young black man standing trial that day, how he dismissed his lawyer's arguments with a wave of his hand, how he chuckled at the idea that someone from his kind could be innocent. That was the moment Keisha and Kayla knew. This was their fight. After court ended that day, they went home, dropped their disguises, and began working, researching, preparing. They had planned everything. A week later, they walked back into that same courtroom, but this time, in sharp, tailored suits, their hair neatly styled, their shoes clicking with confidence on the courtroom floor. They were no longer observers. They were attorneys. But the judge didn't recognize them, and that was his first mistake. When they took their places at the defense table, the prosecutor sneered at them. "Oh, this is going to be fun," he muttered. Keisha smirked. "For us, definitely." The trial began, and at first, everything went as expected. The judge ignored them, dismissed their objections, and made snide comments about their lack of experience. The prosecutor grinned, believing he had already won. And then, Keisha and Kayla unleashed everything they had. Every case law, every legal precedent, every loophole that Judge Reeves had ever abused. They knew them all, and they used them against him. The judge's smirk faded as they tore apart the prosecution's case piece by piece. "You didn't expect us to actually know the law, did you, Your Honor?" Kayla asked sweetly. He slammed his gavel. "Enough of this nonsense." "Oh, but Your Honor," Keisha said, tilting her head, "you didn't seem to mind nonsense when you were making fun of us a few minutes ago." The courtroom gasped. Judge Reeves' face turned red. He looked from the sisters to the documents they had piled in front of him. He saw the reporters scribbling furiously, the spectators whispering. He was trapped. And then, "Order in the court," he bellowed. But this time, nobody was listening. The Carter sisters had taken control. The judge's face was as red as a fire engine. His hands shook slightly as he gripped his gavel, but the Carter sisters could see the sweat forming on his forehead. He had lost control of his own courtroom, and he knew it. Keisha and Kayla stood their ground, their sharp suits unwrinkled, their expressions unreadable. The courtroom, once filled with sneering whispers and mocking laughter, had gone completely silent. The sisters weren't just standing up to a corrupt judge. They were dismantling him. "Order!" Judge Reeves roared again, slamming his gavel so hard the wooden sound echoed through the chamber. Kayla smirked. "Your Honor, we were just about to get to the good part." Keisha picked up another document from the towering stack in front of her. "You see, in the last 3 years, you've presided over 54 cases that involved minority defendants. Do you know what all those cases have in common?" The judge's lips tightened, but he said nothing. Keisha turned the page dramatically. "You ruled against the defendant in every single one, even when evidence pointed to their innocence, even when the law supported them." Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Reporters scratched their pens against their notepads like fire meeting gasoline. The judge gritted his teeth. "That's a coincidence." Kayla shook her head. "Not quite." She flipped to another document and held it up for everyone to see. "This is an appeal you rejected last year. A young black man was convicted on weak evidence, and his lawyer found a witness who could prove his innocence. But you denied the appeal. You didn't even read it, did you?" "Enough," the judge barked, but his voice cracked. Kayla stepped forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Did you think no one was watching?" The judge looked ready to explode, but before he could say another word, bam! The double doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. A woman in a black suit, her high heels clicking with authority, marched inside. Her presence was like an electric current through the room. The prosecutor stiffened. The bailiff instinctively took a step back. The reporters turned their attention to her, their pens now flying across their notebooks. The Carter sisters smiled, because they knew exactly who she was. U.S. Attorney Denise Holloway, and she had come for Judge Reeves. For weeks earlier, Keisha and Kayla had been sitting in their small office, flipping through case files late into the night. Papers covered their desks. Coffee cups sat forgotten in the corners. Their eyes burned from the hours of reading, but they weren't stopping. Kayla rubbed her temple. "There has to be a way to take him down." Keisha tapped her pen against the table. "He's been doing this for years. Judges like him don't fall easily." But they had seen too much to walk away. They had watched too many innocent people lose their freedom because of biased judges. They had studied too many cases where the law had been twisted to serve the powerful instead of the people. And then, in the middle of the night, Keisha found it. "Kayla." Her sister looked up. Keisha turned the screen of her laptop toward her. "Judge Reeves' pattern of unfair rulings isn't just unethical. It's illegal." Kayla leaned in, her eyes scanning the research. And that's when they made the call. Denise Holloway had a reputation. She didn't just go after criminals. She went after corruption. It didn't matter if you were a street-level dealer or a judge sitting on the bench. If you broke the law, she was coming for you. The Carter sisters sent her everything. Every case. Every ruling. Every document they could find that showed Judge Reeves' pattern of abuse. And now, standing in the courtroom, Denise Holloway looked like a storm ready to strike. She walked straight to the front of the room and turned to the judge. "Judge Reeves," she said smoothly, "we need to talk." The judge clenched his fists. "This is my courtroom. You have no right to barge in here." Denise raised a single hand, and the entire courtroom went silent. "I have every right," she said. Because as of today, you're under federal investigation, the courtroom gasped. The reporters nearly knocked over their chairs trying to write down every word. Judge Reeves' face drained of color. "This is absurd," he sputtered. "You have no case against me." "Oh, but we do," Denise said, pulling out a thick manila folder. She handed it to the bailiff. "This is an official notice of investigation, signed by the Attorney General." The judge's hands trembled as he took the document. His eyes darted to the Carter sisters, who stood side by side, their arms crossed, their expressions unreadable. Kayla leaned in just enough for only the judge to hear. "You really should have read our credentials, Your Honor." For the first time that day, Judge Reeves was speechless. Then, boom. The prosecutor's chair crashed to the floor as he leapt to his feet. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. I need a recess," he stammered. Denise Holloway turned to him, her eyes sharp. "Oh, you're not going anywhere." Keisha smirked. "Something wrong, counselor?" And for the first time, the prosecutor realized he wasn't just up against two young attorneys. He was up against a war. Judge Reeves' hands shook as he clutched the investigation notice. His breath was heavy, his face pale. His once confident smirk had been wiped away, replaced with something ugly, fear. The courtroom had erupted into whispers, reporters furiously scribbling down notes. The prosecutor looked as if he was about to pass out. The bailiff, normally stone-faced, was now eyeing the judge cautiously, as if wondering whether he'd have to restrain him. Keisha and Kayla stood silently, their expressions unreadable. They weren't celebrating yet. They knew this fight wasn't over. Not even close. Judge Reeves slammed his gavel so hard that it nearly cracked. "This is ridiculous," he barked. "This is my courtroom. You have no right to." Denise Holloway took a step forward. "Actually, I do." She pulled another document from her briefcase and placed it on the judge's bench. Signed by the Attorney General himself. "You're officially suspended from presiding over this case." Another gasp rippled through the courtroom. The judge's eyes twitched as he scanned the paper. His breath hitched. His voice cracked. His fingers curled into the edge of his bench, as if gripping it would stop the inevitable. Denise tilted her head slightly. "You were hoping no one would notice, weren't you?" Keisha crossed her arms. "You thought you could mock us, humiliate us, and send another innocent man to prison without consequences." Kayla stepped forward. "You thought we wouldn't fight back." Judge Reeves' lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, it seemed as if he was about to say something. Something cruel, something bitter. But then his shoulders dropped. His arrogance, his power, his untouchable confidence. All of it was crumbling. And then, bam, the doors to the courtroom burst open again. This time, it wasn't a lone woman in a power suit. It was a team of federal agents. They marched in with sharp movements, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The air in the courtroom changed instantly. What had been tense was now suffocating. One of the lead agents stepped forward and locked eyes with Judge Reeves. "Your Honor," he said, voice steady but firm, "you need to come with us." Judge Reeves' jaw tightened. "You can't do this." Denise Holloway smirked. "Oh, we absolutely can." Keisha raised an eyebrow. "Unless, of course, you'd rather we read out the charges here?" Judge Reeves' head snapped toward her, his eyes burning with something between hatred and humiliation. Keisha didn't flinch. A long silence stretched between them. Then, finally, the judge slammed his gavel one last time. "This court is adjourned," he growled. He rose from his chair, his movements slow, almost mechanical. He adjusted his robe, squared his shoulders, and tried to walk past the agents as if he still had control over the situation. But the moment he stepped toward the exit, two of them flanked him, guiding him firmly out of the room. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as the once mighty judge was escorted away. The prosecutor, who had been silent all this time, finally snapped out of his daze. He turned to the sisters, his face a mixture of rage and disbelief. This is insane," he hissed. "You think you can just—" Keisha cut him off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We don't think." She stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough for him to hear. "We know." Kayla leaned in beside her. And you should start preparing, counselor. The prosecutor blinked. For what? Kayla gave him a pointed look. You're next. 2 months earlier, Keisha and Kayla had been sitting in a quiet cafe, sipping coffee and going through files. It had taken them years to get to this point. Years of studying, of researching, of planning. Kayla tapped her fingers against her cup. Even if we expose the judge, the prosecution is still a problem. Keisha nodded. That's why we need to dig deeper. If Reeves is corrupt, I guarantee the prosecutor isn't innocent either. Kayla exhaled. This is bigger than we thought, isn't it? Keisha glanced down at the documents in front of them. Cases stretching back years, unfair rulings, convictions based on shaky evidence, deals that never should have been made. This isn't just a corrupt judge, she said softly. This is a system. Kayla stared at her for a long moment. Then let's tear it down. Back in the courtroom, the walls of that very system were already starting to crack. As soon as Judge Reeves was escorted out, the room exploded into noise. Reporters shouted questions. Spectators whispered furiously. Even the bailiff seemed unsure what to do. Denise Holloway turned to Keisha and Kayla. You two just made history today. Keisha smiled. Not yet. Kayla nodded. But we will. The prosecutor slammed his briefcase shut and stormed out of the room without another word. Keisha and Kayla watched him go, their gazes steady, knowing. They weren't finished. Judge Reeves had been just the beginning, and they were coming for everyone else next. The courtroom was still buzzing long after Judge Reeves had been let out in handcuffs. Reporters swarmed the halls, cameras flashing, voices overlapping as they tried to piece together the biggest legal scandal in years. Keisha and Kayla Carter stood near the defense table, their arms crossed, their sharp suits still immaculate despite the storm they had just unleashed. They watched as the prosecutor, Richard Calloway, practically ran out of the room. He knows, Kayla murmured, watching him disappear through the doors. Keisha nodded. He's panicking. He wasn't expecting this. Denise Holloway smirked. He should start expecting a lot more. She turned to them. We have enough to open an investigation into him, but I need hard proof to take him down. Kayla tapped her fingers on the table. Then let's get some. Denise studied them for a moment. You two are fearless. Keisha tilted her head. You say that like it's a bad thing. Denise chuckled. No, I say that like I want you on my team. Keisha and Kayla exchanged a look. Kayla raised an eyebrow. You want to work with us? Denise folded her arms. I want to take down everyone who helped Judge Reeves get away with his corruption for years. I have agents, but I don't have people like you. People who know the law and know how to use it against those who abuse it. Keisha grinned. Sounds like a partnership. Denise held out her hand. It does, doesn't it? Keisha and Kayla each shook it, sealing the deal. But just as their hands dropped, a loud commotion broke out in the hallway. Bam! The doors to the courtroom burst open, and two men in dark suits stormed in. U.S. Marshals. One of them stepped forward, his badge gleaming. Where are Keisha and Kayla Carter? The room fell silent. Keisha and Kayla stepped forward, their expressions unreadable. The marshal glanced between them, then pulled out a folded document. You're being summoned for questioning. The sisters didn't flinch. Denise Holloway's eyes narrowed. On what grounds? The second marshal handed over a piece of paper. We have a warrant to investigate their legal conduct in this case. The prosecutor, Richard Calloway, suddenly appeared in the doorway, his smirk returning. Looks like the genius attorneys aren't as untouchable as they thought. Keisha and Kayla remained calm, but their minds were already racing. This was retaliation. Calloway had found a way to strike back, and now they were in trouble. 2 months earlier, Keisha had been digging through old legal records late into the night, her laptop screen glowing in the dim light of their small office. She had been searching for a pattern, something that could tie Judge Reeves to other corrupt figures. What she found instead was worse. Kayla walked in with 2 cups of coffee, setting one beside Keisha. You've been at this for hours. What did you find? Keisha exhaled, rubbing her temples. It's not just Reeves. It's the entire district. Kayla frowned. What do you mean? Keisha turned the screen toward her, showing a list of names. Judges, prosecutors, even defense attorneys. They all work together, Keisha said. Rigging cases, making sure the right people win, burying evidence that doesn't fit their narrative. Kayla's stomach twisted. This is bigger than we thought. Keisha nodded. And if we don't play this carefully, they're going to come after us. Now, standing in front of the U.S. Marshals, Keisha and Kayla knew their time was up. Calloway had moved first. Denise Holloway's jaw tightened as she scanned the warrant. This is bogus. A desperate move. Calloway's smirk widened. Doesn't matter. They're coming with the Marshals. Keisha and Kayla exchanged a glance. They knew they had no choice but to comply. Fighting this here would only make them look guilty. Keisha gave a small smirk. Fine. We'll go. Kayla tilted her head. But Calloway? He raised an eyebrow. Kayla took a slow step forward, lowering her voice just enough for only him to hear. You should have done your homework. Calloway frowned. What? Before he could finish, Keisha pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. The speakers in the courtroom crackled to life. And then, a voice echoed through the room. Calloway's voice. If we don't get rid of them, they'll tear this whole operation apart. Gasps filled the air. Reporters scrambled to grab their cameras. Calloway's face went white. What the? Keisha tapped her phone again. We recorded everything. Kayla smiled. Like we said, you should have done your homework. The Marshals hesitated. Calloway took a step back, panic creeping into his eyes. And then, Denise Holloway smirked. Marshal, I suggest you arrest the correct person. The lead marshal looked at the recording again. Then, without hesitation, he turned to Calloway. You're under arrest. Bam. The courtroom erupted into chaos. The Carter sisters just stood there, watching as the system they had been fighting against began to collapse. And this was just the beginning. Richard Calloway's face twisted in shock as the U.S. Marshal stepped toward him, his hand reaching for his cuffs. The confidence he had just moments ago, his smug smirk, his air of superiority, vanished in an instant. You can't do this, he stammered. This is ridiculous. Keisha tapped her phone again, replaying his recorded words. If we don't get rid of them, they'll tear this whole operation apart. The words echoed through the courtroom like a bomb. Reporters whispered furiously, their cameras flashing. The bailiff stared at the prosecutor, as if finally seeing him for who he really was. Kayla crossed her arms. Still think we're just girls playing dress-up? The marshal didn't wait for an answer. With practiced efficiency, he spun Calloway around and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice, conspiracy to falsify evidence, and misconduct, the marshal said coldly. Calloway thrashed. I am the prosecutor, he screamed. They're the ones who should be in cuffs, not me. Denise Holloway took a step closer, her voice smooth and unbothered. Richard, you really should have been more careful about where you had your little meetings. Kayla grinned. Especially when we were sitting right behind you at the cafe. Calloway froze. His eyes darted between them. You set me up? Keisha shrugged. We just let you do what you do best. Run your mouth? The marshal pulled Calloway toward the door, but the prosecutor wasn't done fighting. You think this is over? He spat. I'm not the only one. You have no idea how deep this goes. They're coming for you. Keisha's smirk didn't waver. We're counting on it. Bam. The doors slammed shut behind Calloway and the marshals. The courtroom was left in stunned silence. Then, chaos. Reporters rushed forward, cameras flashing, questions being shouted from every direction. Miss Carter, did you know the prosecution was corrupt from the beginning? How long have you been building your case? Who else do you believe is involved? What's next for the Carter sisters? Denise Holloway raised a hand, signaling for calm. No further questions at this time, she said sharply. The reporters didn't listen. Keisha and Kayla, however, were already moving. They slipped past the reporters, past the murmuring spectators, and straight toward the exit. They had won today's battle. But Calloway had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. 3 months earlier, Keisha and Kayla had been sitting in a dimly lit basement office, poring over files that should have never existed. Kayla tapped the desk impatiently. We have enough to take down Reeves. Maybe Calloway, too. Keisha leaned back in her chair.
That's not enough.
Kayla frowned. What do you mean? Keisha turned her laptop toward her. On the screen was a web of connections, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, even police officers. This isn't just a few bad apples, Keisha said. This is a network. Kayla's stomach twisted. So if we go after one, the others will close ranks. Keisha nodded. They'll protect themselves. If we make one wrong move, they'll bury us before we even get close. Kayla clenched her jaw. Then we can't make a wrong move. Back in the present, the sisters walked through the courthouse lobby, heading straight for the exit. Where to? Kayla asked. Keisha didn't hesitate. Back to the office. We need to see who moves first now that Reeves and Calloway are down. Denise Holloway caught up with them before they reached the door. You know this isn't going to stop here, right? Keisha nodded. We're counting on it. Denise studied them for a moment, then smiled slightly. I'll be in touch. And be careful. Kayla smirked. Careful's not really our style. Denise chuckled and walked off. As the sisters stepped outside, the cold New York air hit them like a slap. But it wasn't the wind that sent a chill down their spines. It was the black SUV parked across the street. The windows were tinted. The engine was running. And even from a distance, Keisha and Kayla could feel the weight of someone watching them. Kayla's fingers twitched. We're being followed. Keisha's expression didn't change. Good. Kayla raised an eyebrow. Good. Keisha's eyes never left the SUV. That means they're scared. And then, bam! The SUV's tires screeched as it sped away, vanishing into the busy city streets. The game had just changed. And the Carter sisters were ready. The black SUV had vanished into the crowded New York streets, but the feeling of being watched lingered in the air. Keisha and Kayla exchanged a glance. No words were needed. They had expected retaliation, but not this fast. Should we follow? Kayla asked. Keisha shook her head. They want us to chase. They want us distracted. Kayla exhaled, glancing around. The courthouse steps were still swarming with reporters, but she knew there were other eyes on them now. Eyes that wouldn't be holding cameras. We need to get out of here, she muttered. Keisha agreed. Without another word, they stepped off the courthouse steps and blended into the crowded sidewalk. They had barely walked a block when Kayla's phone buzzed. A blocked number. She showed it to Keisha, who gave a short nod. Kayla answered. A deep voice, smooth and calculated, came through the line. You should have stopped while you had the chance. Kayla smirked. And you should have come up with a better threat. A pause. Then the voice continued, slower this time. You don't know what you've started. Keisha leaned in and spoke into the phone. Oh, we know exactly what we've started. The question is, do you? Silence. Then, click. The call ended. Kayla sighed. Coward. Keisha pocketed her phone. Let's move. They cut through side streets, keeping an eye on their surroundings. They had learned from experience. When you're up against powerful people, paranoia isn't paranoia. It's survival. 20 minutes later, they reached their office, a small but efficient workspace above an old bookstore. The moment they stepped inside, they locked the doors and pulled the blinds. Kayla went straight to the desk, pulling up surveillance feeds. Cameras they had installed in and around the courthouse, in certain law offices, even near the prosecutor's office. Keisha took a seat, rubbing her temples. We need to figure out who that was. Kayla clicked through the footage. Calloway was right about one thing. This goes deeper. Keisha sighed. That's what worries me. Kayla's fingers froze on the keyboard. Keisha. Her sister turned. What? Kayla pointed to the screen. We have a problem. On the footage, just outside their office building, a man in a dark coat was leaning against a lamppost. He wasn't looking at the camera directly, but his stance was too deliberate, too still. Keisha narrowed her eyes. Is he alone? Kayla switched angles. No, she zoomed in. Across the street, another man was pretending to read a newspaper. A third was parked in a black sedan a block away. They're watching us, Kayla muttered. Keisha exhaled slowly. Time to find out who they are. She reached for her laptop and pulled up a separate set of files. If these men were part of the network they had uncovered, there had to be something. An employee record, a suspicious transaction, anything that connected them to the corruption they had just exposed. Kayla switched the camera feeds again, just in time to see the man in the dark coat lift his phone to his ear. And then, bam, their office door rattled as someone banged on it from the outside. Keisha and Kayla jumped to their feet. A voice called through the door. "Ladies, open up." Kayla reached for the desk drawer, where she kept a taser. "That doesn't sound like a request." Keisha kept her voice calm. "Who is it?" A pause. Then, the voice answered, "FBI." Kayla and Keisha exchanged a glance. And then Keisha whispered, "I don't believe them." For months earlier, Keisha and Kayla had been deep in research, uncovering corruption in the justice system. But one case had stood out, a case from 5 years ago where a young black attorney had exposed a bribery ring involving judges and prosecutors. The attorney had been brilliant, brave, determined, and then, suddenly, he had disappeared. Kayla had found the last known article about him. "Says here he was being investigated for misconduct," she had said. "Sound familiar?" Keisha had clenched her jaw. "They did to him what they're trying to do to us now." Kayla had looked up, her expression dark. "Then we need to make sure they don't succeed this time." Now, standing in their office with someone claiming to be the FBI outside their door, Keisha and Kayla knew exactly what was happening. Kayla moved toward the security monitor, switching cameras. "They don't have badges visible." Keisha nodded. "They don't want us verifying anything." Another knock. Louder this time. "We know you're in there." Keisha crossed her arms. And a beat of silence. Then, bam, the door handle twisted violently. Someone was trying to force their way in. Kayla didn't hesitate. She grabbed the laptop, shoving it into a bag. "Time to go." Keisha moved fast, pulling open the door to their back exit. They slipped out into the alley just as the front door burst open behind them. Footsteps. Voices. "Find them." Keisha grabbed Kayla's wrist, pulling her into the shadows. "Move." The sisters ran. This wasn't just a corrupt judge anymore. This wasn't just a dirty prosecutor. This was bigger. And now, someone wanted them gone. For good. Keisha and Kayla sprinted through the dimly lit alley, their breaths sharp, their hearts pounding. They didn't know who was chasing them, but they knew one thing. Whoever it was, they weren't law enforcement. Real FBI agents didn't break into offices without a warrant. Real FBI agents didn't have men in black SUVs watching from the shadows. This was something else. "Turn left," Keisha hissed, yanking Kayla's arm as they veered sharply around a corner. Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed against the brick walls. Their pursuers were fast. Kayla gritted her teeth. "Where are we going?" Keisha pulled out her phone, quickly glancing at the map. "Subway's 2 blocks away. If we can lose them in the crowd, we'll be fine." "Fine is a stretch," Kayla muttered, but she didn't argue. The sound of running feet grew louder. Keisha risked a glance back. 3 men, all in dark clothing, moving fast. And then, bam, a gunshot rang out. Kayla's body jerked as she shoved Keisha toward the wall. They ducked, pressing themselves against the cold bricks. "They're shooting at us?" Kayla hissed. Keisha's mind was already racing. "They're not trying to kill us." Kayla's eyes widened. "What? If they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead," Keisha whispered. "They're trying to scare us. Trying to make us desperate." Another shot. This time, it hit a metal dumpster near them, sending sparks flying. Kayla clenched her fists. "Well, it's working." Keisha scanned their surroundings, looking for a way out. "We have to move. Now." The men were closing in. Their shadows stretched against the walls, getting closer with every second. Keisha spotted an old fire escape a few feet ahead. Rusted, but still intact. "That's our way out," she whispered. Kayla followed her gaze. "You're kidding." Keisha wasn't. She grabbed Kayla's wrist and sprinted forward. Kayla had no choice but to follow. Just as they reached the ladder, bam, a bullet hit the wall inches from Keisha's head. Kayla let out a string of curses. "Keisha, move." Keisha jumped, grabbing the bottom rung of the fire escape. She hoisted herself up, her muscles burning as she climbed. Kayla followed, moving fast despite the adrenaline-fueled panic rushing through her veins. Below them, the men cursed. "She's getting away," one shouted. One of them reached for something in his pocket. Kayla's stomach twisted. Keisha, go. Keisha pulled herself up onto the platform. Just as Kayla reached the railing, bam! A hand grabbed her ankle. Kayla gasped as she was yanked downward, her fingers slipping from the metal bar. Keisha's eyes widened. Kayla! Kayla twisted, kicking blindly. Her foot connected with the man's face, sending him stumbling back. But he wasn't alone. 2 more men grabbed for her, their hands clawing at her legs. Keisha didn't think. She acted. She climbed over the railing and launched herself down. Bam! She landed hard, knocking one of the men to the ground. Kayla used the distraction to break free, elbowing the second man in the face. He staggered back, cursing. Keisha grabbed Kayla's hand. Run! They bolted down the alley, their attackers momentarily stunned. Keisha spotted a crowded intersection up ahead. There! She shouted. They burst onto the sidewalk, shoving past pedestrians, blending into the swarm of bodies. Cars honked. Streetlights flickered. The men chased them for half a block. Then, just like that, they were gone. Keisha and Kayla ducked into a coffee shop, their breaths ragged, their hands shaking. Kayla collapsed into a chair. Okay, that was too close. Keisha didn't respond. She was already pulling out her laptop. Kayla frowned. Keisha's fingers flew across the keyboard. We need to find out who those guys were, she muttered. Because they're not just criminals. They're organized. Kayla exhaled, rubbing her temples. You think it's connected to Reeves and Calloway? Keisha looked up, her expression grim. I think we just uncovered something even bigger. And then, bam! A notification flashed on her screen. An encrypted email. No sender. The subject line made Keisha's blood turn cold. Walk away before it's too late. Kayla read over her shoulder. Her hands curled into fists. Keisha exhaled. Looks like we're officially in the deep end. Kayla cracked her knuckles. Then let's swim. Keisha and Kayla sat in the dimly lit coffee shop, their hearts still racing from the chase. The encrypted email on Keisha's screen seemed to glow brighter in the darkness, its ominous message seeping into their bones. Walk away before it's too late. Kayla tapped the table anxiously. Who sent this? Keisha's fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard. Whoever they are, they're good. No sender, no traceable IP address. But they slipped up. Kayla leaned in. How? Keisha smirked. They used an old encryption method. It's strong, but not unbreakable. She opened another program, her fingers a blur as she worked to decrypt the message. The bar on the screen filled slowly, inching toward 100%. Kayla drummed her fingers against the table. This isn't just about Reeves and Calloway anymore. We're dealing with something bigger, something organized. Keisha nodded. We need to figure out who we're up against, before they figure out how to get rid of us. Bam! The coffee shop door swung open. A man in a black suit entered, scanning the room. His gaze flickered over the customers before landing on Keisha and Kayla. Kayla's pulse spiked. We need to go. Keisha casually closed her laptop and stood. Out the back. They moved swiftly toward the rear exit, slipping into the alley behind the shop. But the moment they stepped outside, bam! Another black SUV screeched to a stop at the alley entrance. 2 men stepped out. The sisters froze. One of them smiled. Going somewhere? Kayla clenched her jaw. Who are you? The man in the suit took a step closer, his smile never faltering. Friends. Keisha scoffed. Funny. Our friends don't usually try to kill us. The man chuckled. No one's trying to kill you. He gestured to the SUV. We just want to talk. Kayla narrowed her eyes. Talk about what? The man's smile faded slightly. About your investigation. About how deep you're willing to go. Keisha folded her arms. And if we say no? The man's face turned cold. Then you won't like what happens next. Silence. Then, Kayla took a step forward. You know what? She said, her voice dangerously calm. I'm really tired of people thinking they can intimidate us. The man raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Kayla nodded. Yeah. So here's what's going to happen. She took another step closer. You're going to tell us who you work for. You're going to tell us why you care so much about this case. And you're going to do it now. The man chuckled again. And why would I do that? Kayla smirked. Because you're standing in the only alley in New York with 6 security cameras. The man's expression flickered. He glanced up, spotting the blinking red lights. Keisha grinned. Oops. Did we forget to mention that? The man's jaw tightened. He turned to his partner and gave a sharp nod. The second man pulled something from his pocket. Keisha and Kayla tensed. Then, bam, a flash drive landed on the ground between them. Keisha blinked. What's this? The man in the suit smirked. A warning. Kayla frowned. A warning for what? The man took a step back, his hands in his pockets. For what's coming. And then, just like that, he and his partner got into the SUV and drove away. Keisha and Kayla stood frozen for a moment before Kayla picked up the flash drive. This feels like a trap, she muttered. Keisha exhaled. Only one way to find out. An hour later, they were back in their office, the blinds drawn, the door triple-locked. Kayla sat at the desk, staring at the flash drive like it might explode. I hate this. Keisha plugged it into a secure laptop. Same. The screen flickered as a folder popped up. Inside was a single video file. Keisha hesitated, then clicked it. The screen went black for a moment. Then, a grainy image appeared. A hidden camera feed. A dimly lit office. A man sitting behind a desk, speaking on the phone. Keisha and Kayla leaned in closer. The voice on the call was chillingly familiar. Judge Reeves. Kayla's stomach twisted. No way. They listened as he spoke. They're getting too close. I don't care what you have to do. Make them stop. Then, another voice responded. And this one made Keisha's blood run cold. It was the Attorney General. I'll handle it. Kayla's breath hitched. The Attorney General is involved? Keisha's hands curled into fists. This goes all the way to the top. Then, bam, the video cut to black. A new message popped up on the screen. Now do you understand? Kayla swallowed hard. Keisha, we just declared war on the U.S. government. Keisha's jaw tightened. Then we'd better win. The office was silent except for the hum of the laptop, the black screen still flashing the words. Now do you understand? Keisha and Kayla stared at it, their minds racing. The Attorney General, one of the highest law enforcement officials in the country, was involved. Kayla swallowed hard. This isn't just corruption. Keisha exhaled, her hands still curled into fists. This is a conspiracy. Kayla ran a hand through her hair. We just exposed Judge Reeves and Calloway, but if the Attorney General is in on this, it means the whole system is rigged. Keisha's voice was sharp. And it means they won't stop coming for us. A heavy silence filled the room. Then, bam, 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 a loud knock on the office door. Keisha and Kayla jolted to their feet. Who is it? Keisha called out cautiously. No answer. Kayla grabbed her taser from the drawer. Keisha reached for her laptop, ready to shut it down. Bam, bam, bam. Another round of pounding. Kayla moved toward the peephole and took a quick glance. Her breath hitched. It's Denise. Keisha exhaled in relief and quickly unlocked the door. Denise Holloway stormed in, her face tight with urgency. She locked the door behind her and turned to them. You two need to leave. Now. Kayla blinked. What? Denise's eyes were sharp, serious. I just got word. There's an official warrant out for your arrest. Keisha's stomach dropped. For what? Denise pulled out her phone, scrolling quickly before holding it up. A breaking news headline flashed on the screen. Black twin attorneys Keisha and Kayla Carter accused of tampering with federal evidence. Arrest warrants issued. Kayla's hands curled into fists. You've got to be kidding me. Denise shook her head. They're setting you up. They're making you the criminals. Keisha clenched her jaw. This is exactly what they did to that attorney 5 years ago. Denise nodded. And he disappeared. Kayla narrowed her eyes. So they want us to disappear too. Denise's face was grim. If they arrest you, you'll never see a courtroom again. You'll never get a trial. You'll just vanish. Keisha took a deep breath, her mind moving a mile a minute. Then we can't let them take us. Denise glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. I have a way to get you out of the city, but we need to move fast. Kayla raised an eyebrow. Run? That's not exactly our style. Denise shook her head. It's not running. It's strategy. You can't fight this from a prison cell. Or worse. Keisha exchanged a look with Kayla. They hated the idea of leaving, of giving up ground. But they weren't stupid. Kayla exhaled. Fine. What's the plan? Denise pulled out a keycard and handed it to Keisha. There's a safe house on the Lower East Side. Use this to get in. Lay low. Keisha frowned. And what are you going to do? Denise's eyes hardened. I'm going to buy you time. Kayla smirked. By doing what? Denise gave a small, knowing smile. By making some very public noise. Keisha grinned. I like the way you think. Denise's expression darkened. Just promise me you won't do anything reckless. Kayla scoffed. Reckless? Us? Denise sighed. That's exactly what I'm worried about. Then, bam, a sudden crash outside. Denise froze. They're here. Keisha grabbed her laptop, shoving it into her bag. Kayla grabbed her taser and a burner phone. Denise peeked out the window. Black SUVs. 3 of them. Keisha inhaled sharply. They're not wasting any time. Kayla cracked her knuckles. Then neither are we. Denise turned to them. Back exit. Now. Keisha and Kayla nodded, moving fast. They slipped through the back door, stepping into a narrow alley. A helicopter whirred in the distance. Sirens blared from blocks away. They're locking down the city, Kayla muttered. Keisha's mind worked quickly. Then we need to disappear before they get here. Denise stayed behind, peeking out toward the front. She glanced back at them one last time. Be careful. Keisha smirked. No promises. Kayla gave a small salute. See you on the other side. And with that, they ran. The streets were alive with chaos. Police cars sped past. People gathered near the courthouse, watching the news unfold in real time on their phones. Kayla kept her hood up. We need a car. Keisha glanced around. Or a distraction. And then, bam! A massive explosion rocked the street. Fire erupted from a car near the courthouse. People screamed. Sirens wailed even louder. Kayla's eyes widened. What the? Keisha's blood ran cold. That wasn't us. They turned toward the chaos. And that's when they saw him. A tall man in a gray suit, standing calmly amid the fire and smoke. Watching them, Kayla whispered, Who the hell is that? Keisha swallowed. I think we just found out who we're really up against. The man raised a single finger to his lips. A silent warning. And then, he vanished. Kayla exhaled sharply. This just got worse. Keisha's jaw tightened. No, she murmured. This just got personal. The city was on fire, figuratively and literally. The explosion near the courthouse had thrown everything into chaos. Sirens wailed. People ran in every direction. And in the middle of it all, Keisha and Kayla Carter were running for their lives. Not from fear, from the truth. Because now, they knew exactly who they were up against. And he had just sent them a warning. The man in the gray suit. The one who had orchestrated everything. The one who had been watching them from the shadows. The one who had ordered their deaths. Kayla clenched her fists. I swear, when we find him, Keisha grabbed her wrist and pulled her behind a parked car. Not now. We need to get to the safe house. Kayla gritted her teeth but nodded. Fine. But when this is over, I want answers. Keisha exhaled. We all do. They moved fast, cutting through alleyways, avoiding cameras, slipping through crowds like ghosts. By the time they reached the Lower East Side, the city had gone into full lockdown. Police checkpoints were everywhere. Helicopters circled above. The warrant for their arrest was being broadcasted on every news station. They were officially the most wanted women in New York. But they weren't running to hide. They were running to finish this. The safe house was hidden inside an old apartment building, tucked between a laundromat and a barbershop. Keisha swiped the keycard, and the door unlocked with a soft beep. They slipped inside, locking it behind them. The place was small but functional. Bare walls, basic furniture, a single desk with an old laptop. Kayla dropped her bag. All right, let's figure out how to end this. Keisha powered on the laptop, inserted the flash drive, and pulled up everything they had. Judge Reeves? Exposed. Arrested. Gone. Richard Calloway? Exposed. Arrested. Gone. The Attorney General? Not yet. And then there was him, the man in the gray suit, the one who had been in control the whole time. Kayla pulled up the video feed from the courthouse. There. She froze the frame. Enhance it. Keisha zoomed in. The man's face became clearer. Their breath caught. Kayla whispered, "No way." It was him. Senator Thomas Mercer. One of the most powerful men in the country. Keisha sat back. He's not just part of it. She looked at Kayla. He's the head of it. Kayla's hands curled into fists. This was never just about a few corrupt judges. It's an entire operation. Keisha exhaled. And we're the only ones who can stop it. Kayla leaned forward. Then let's bring him down. They spent hours digging, hacking, pulling every piece of evidence they could find. Mercer had ties to Reeves, Calloway, and dozens of others. Bribery, fraud, rigged trials, even disappearances. He had buried cases, ordered arrests, silenced whistleblowers. And now, he was trying to silence them. Kayla clenched her jaw. We need to expose him. All of it. Keisha nodded. We need something big. Something undeniable. Kayla scrolled through files until she found it. A recorded phone call. She clicked play. Make sure they don't make it out of the city. Mercer's voice. The sisters exchanged a look. This was it. Kayla grinned. Game over. Keisha smirked. Time to go public. They had one shot at this. With their faces all over the news, walking into a TV station was out of the question. They needed someone who could broadcast it without interference. And they knew exactly who to call. Denise Holloway. They sent her the file with one message. Drop it. Now. Less than an hour later, the world exploded. Every major news outlet received the recording. Every social media platform was flooded with it. A sitting U.S. senator caught on tape ordering hits on 2 attorneys. Within minutes, the White House issued a statement. Within an hour, the FBI launched an internal investigation. And within 2 hours, Mercer was arrested. Live. On national television. Keisha and Kayla watched from a rooftop as the police dragged him out of his mansion in handcuffs. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Mercer didn't look smug anymore. Kayla smirked. Not so powerful now, are you? Keisha exhaled. We did it. Kayla looked at her. It's over. Keisha was quiet for a long moment. Then, she shook her head. No, she looked at the city below. It's just beginning. Kayla raised an eyebrow. You're kidding, right? We just took down one of the most powerful men in the country. Keisha nodded. Yeah. One. Kayla frowned. You think there's more? Keisha's expression was serious. There's always more. Kayla exhaled, then grinned. Well, good thing we're not going anywhere. Keisha smirked. Nope. The Carter sisters weren't just attorneys anymore. They were something else. Something more. And they weren't stopping until justice was truly served.